this money has to go there. So we're constantly investing in the part of the Arab world where they're not going through the positive social mutations of countries like UAE or Saudi Arabia, but they kind of are connected. They live together. They rely on each other, whether it's talent or capital or markets or language or... Hi, I'm Walid Mansour, and you're listening to GGUTT Talks, GGUTT.
Hi, I'm Maria, and welcome to GGUTT Talks, where we co-create a collective intelligence involving both people who are not always in the limelight and those who are, in order to learn from each other and spread knowledge, creative and critical thinking in the business world. All I ask is to follow or subscribe to the show and get in touch. It helps me know that there are actually people listening and I'm actually not just shouting into the void. Now let's get started. Walid Mansour is the co-founder and co-CEO of Middle East Venture Partners, or MEVP. He's been deeply involved in the VC and technology ecosystems in the MENA region for over 20 years, from setup to scale-up and exits. He serves as a board member and advisor to many technology companies regionally and globally. We talk about the MENA and GCC ecosystems, what VCs look for, ongoing cycles and their impact, and of course, stories and advice for seasoned and aspiring entrepreneurs. Here we go. So Walid, I'm really glad to have you here on GGUTT Talks. We met many years ago. And I remember back then you were telling me, what are you doing in Italy? You should be in Dubai. You moved to the Middle East a long time ago, and you started in the VC world quite a while back, actually, in the MENA region. I think you were one of the first. My question for you is, let's jump into it straight away. What is it that attracted you to the Middle East? What did you see? What's the potential you saw? Because right now it's buzzing, it's booming.
So hi, Maria. I'm very happy to see you indeed after all those many years. And I have to say that Italy is one of my favorite countries, so you're lucky to live there. The reason I must have told you to move there, to move to the Middle East, must be around the time when I started realizing what is the growth potential of this part of the world is not just the growth, not just the economic growth, but also the cultural, the social, the economical, financial, entrepreneurial potential. And that was about 20 years ago when I moved here. I did land in Saudi Arabia in 2004 or end of 2004, and then immediately after the UAE. And I came after spending almost a decade in Europe and traveling around the world, studying, working. And I came here thinking that I'll be just spending a few months, small project, work-related project. And then I ended up staying almost close to 20 years. And the reason has been a combination of fascination with a very young economy. So if we talk about the Arab world only, the Arab world is home to roughly 400 million people inside the Arab world, about 100 million of Arab speakers all over the world. And that's just the Arab world. We're not talking about all other nations around us. Indian subcontinent, Asian countries, African countries. As you know, Dubai is geographically the center of many continents, many civilizations. If you take a 6 hours flight from Dubai as a radius, you'll cover probably 2 billion people. 6 hours east takes you beyond Thailand, and 6 hours west takes you close to Paris. So you have a scale, and then you go 6 hours south and you're in Madagascar and on your way to South Africa. So within a day's flight, basically, you're in all these different civilizations. And what attracted me is just the vision of very selected. Back then, it was the vision of very few leaders that kind of always thought that this land is very strategic, not just for its natural resources, but strategic for its cultural relevance, for its geography, for its geopolitical role, for its financial capabilities. And I think kind of worked hard as a nation to put the infrastructure for that. And you look at Dubai today in particular, you look at the UAE as a country, and then Dubai as a city or as an emirate. You see that over the past, I'd say, 30, 40 years, mega institutions were built in logistics and transportation and basic material, mining, energy, financial institution, real estate, education, healthcare. Tremendous work has been put in all these sectors. And finally, innovation. About 20 years ago, this is what led me to really realize the potential of this sector. Back then, I remember being amazed on how much young companies and SMEs and had no access to equity. Banking sectors, financial institutions, investors were very risk averse, or did not understand, or did not want to, had no appetite to provide any investment, any debt, any equity funding to SMEs and startup. And that's how basically I got into it, from this observation that led to later on everything that we've done, which is build the first venture capital company in the Arab world and in the MENA region. We applied the Silicon Valley playbook. We started with a tiny seed fund, and the rest is history.
Since you started talking about this, let's maybe talk a bit about the region, because you started in Lebanon, right? And then you moved to the UAE, but you landed first in Saudi Arabia. And Saudi Arabia right now is growing. I don't know if we would call it hyper growth also somehow, but what's next for the region?
Actually, I moved to Dubai around the year 2005. And when we set up the first fund in 2010, we did start in Lebanon because Lebanon was a much better place to start companies from. Talent, cost effective. But our strategy has been to invest in this part of the world. We did also have a presence and an office in Dubai. So as a company, today we have offices in Cairo, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, UAE. So we kind of expanded because we want to focus and invest in the Middle East, the Arab world particularly. So back then we started, two cities, and now we're in many countries across the region with presence on the ground, investments, etc. So that's on the evolution side of our company and how we built the business. And we followed the entrepreneurs. We followed them in Egypt, in Jordan, in Kuwait, in Saudi Arabia, UAE, Bahrain, Oman, Pakistan, even Turkey. We did some investments in Turkey. So our radius has been really big, but predominantly focused on the Arab world. Now you ask what's next for the region. I guess in order to understand what's next, we have to understand where is it coming. So let's define the region as really the Arab world, because there's a lot of countries around us, Turkey, Iran, Pakistan, India, that have their own ecosystem. So I prefer to talk about the ecosystem of the Arab world, and predominantly the ecosystems of the GCC countries, the Levant countries, and Egypt, who are kind of the nucleus. And North Africa eventually started being integrated to this nucleus. I'm talking about the entrepreneurship ecosystem, where you have a lot of entrepreneurs starting in one city or one country, moving immediately to another, consolidating the region, and sometimes going global. We saw a big movement of people between these countries, talent, all type of talent, a big movement of investors. So many investors or capital has been really flowing well between these countries for decades. And of course, a cultural sensitivity or cultural resonance. Because if you are, let's say, in Cairo and you're an entrepreneur and you want to work in tech, you'll understand what it takes to scale in the GCC or scale in other parts of the Arab world. So it's been, this combination of culture, capital, and talent that makes it a really interesting mix for entrepreneurship. Because you're not just starting in your own country, you have your much bigger regional ambitions, and then that could be the basis of global ambitions, and that has happened many, many, many times with a lot of the companies we backed. We specialize in consumer internet software as a service companies, which by nature have to be scalable because you can't really pull a mega business focusing on one tiny country or two tiny countries. You have to build the infrastructure and the product to scale globally. So starting in the Arab world with all these 400 million potential customers, a very interesting value proposition for internet businesses and software businesses. And with time, things got more sophisticated, complicated, interesting. And today we are, as an industry in the region, still small, but much bigger than when we started. Today, there's about $3 billion of venture capital investments in startups in the Arab world per year. 14 years ago, that was zero. That's a good growth. But that 3 billion is a very tiny number compared to the actual GDP of those countries. If you take that potential, we have a very long way to go still. That's one. That's two. The actors who jumped into this industry are now numerous. You have all type of investors, from the small retail angel individual investors to the family offices to the corporates to the sovereign wealth funds. We do have a lot of sovereign wealth funds in this part of the world, and many are becoming more and more active in the diversification of the economy and the support of entrepreneurs and the adoption of technologies. And they do have global ambitions. They do have global reach. They are investors in many, many large funds. Globally, there's a lot of technologies that are being domiciled here or seeking investment here or seeking partnerships here. So that makes the landscape today way more exciting than it was when we started. And where it's going, I think it's going into a much brighter, more exciting future, because no matter how you look at it, GCC countries in particular, because of the oil industry, have amassed a lot of wealth, but they have realized, and the first actually to realize and do something about it was the Emirate of Dubai. Realized that the oil market is not going to be around and lucrative for many, many years because of many reasons. It is today, but in the future, with energy transitions and more adoption of different type of energies, and this economy will probably change. So they got to the realization that diversification of the economy is key. And that diversification started many years ago. So it took many shapes and forms. There's been serious reforms, economic reform, social reform. I mean, you can look at Saudi Arabia in particular, where you see the fastest social reform anywhere on the planet, just in the span of 5 to 7 years. We're talking about a lot of regulatory changes, a lot of social changes. One thing, for instance, that Saudi Arabia did is stop a lot of the subsidies economy that it had built to subsidize large portion of its population, and transform that subsidy into investments. And now Saudi Arabia is a vibrant economy with a lot of opportunities for a lot of people. I think it's a wonderful country to live in and to be part of its buzzing economy and social change as we speak. So if you're in your 20s today and looking for adventure, I'd say go to Saudi. Or even not just in your 20s, and you're up for any adventure, I think it's a country worth exploring. in a certain extent, the UAE has kind of got more diversification of its economy going. And that's kind of the driver. That's really the driver of entrepreneurship, because entrepreneurs are key to that new economy. They are key because they create stories, companies, they create talent, they participate in the mobility of talent and wealth creation, but also they have a wonderful effect on people, which is the motivational effect. When you are surrounded by, or you know, entrepreneurs, or your friends or your acquaintances or your ex-colleagues become successful, it has a high contagious effect on you, because you start seeing, because it stops being something far. People talk today about Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and Steve Jobs. For most of us, those names are just names. They're not real people that we can interact and know with. But when you have entrepreneurs who've been your classmates, your friends, your maybe distant family members, or whatever, people that you've actually known and spoken with, and they became wildly successful, then you start saying, why not me? What is it? Why can I not be as successful, if not more? That is the importance of establishing an entrepreneurial society. It has this contagious effect and becomes a agent of change, much more effective than reading about it in books. Or, I guess a very important element in that mutation that those societies are going through.
What you highlighted is important, because the makeup, I think, of the region is also different. The whole context. You're talking in a way about people who are there and people who are coming there, establishing themselves. It kind of feels there's no rush to do something. Whereas you look at, I mean, everyone wants to go to Silicon Valley, right? In a way, and they go to make things happen, but then they don't have to be there all the time if it works or it doesn't work, or they try again and so on. So are you noticing right now, because I know there are many, calls or invitations for startups or entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs to come to the region and establish from there or be based there, or just live there and then eventually start something. Is this kind of changing the way the society is?
We're in a fast, rapidly transforming society in the Arab world. I mean, look at just countries like Saudi Arabia. 80% of the population is less than 35 years old. 80%. So everyone is a very young society. All those people, they want success, careers, jobs. They might build families, buy homes, build businesses, learn, play, all of that. So we are talking about a very unique space-time that you don't see that in Europe, you don't see that in Japan, you don't see that in China, you don't see that. You see that in very few spots around the world where you have a very young society. This is the feeling that anyone gets in, specifically in the GCC. So I'm not talking about the rest of the Arab world, because the rest of the Arab world has a lot of challenges, geopolitical challenges, sometimes economical challenges, specifically countries like Egypt, who are now suffering from inflation and currency depreciation, but also the war. And I'm not going to talk even about Palestine and Lebanon and Iraq and Syria. It's been, the past decade have been devastating for those economies and those societies for a variety of reasons. I mean, we can talk about it at length. But specifically the GCC, who's kind of have the opposite image, and a lot of people from those countries end up working here, doing very well in the GCC, supporting their families and economies back home, investing in startups. So we just launched a fund now, and the focus of our fund is GCC, Lebanon, Jordan, Palestine, Egypt, Iraq, Tunisia, Algeria, and Morocco. It's $150 million. It's a early stage, growth stage tech fund, and this money has to go there. So we're constantly investing in the part of the Arab world where they're not going through the positive social mutations of countries like UAE or Saudi Arabia, but they kind of are connected. They live together. They rely on each other, whether it's talent or capital or markets or language or name it. It's to a certain extent there are very strong bridges. Our role are to make those bridges stronger, but they are there.
Hey everyone, quick ask. If this is inspiring you to use creativity, critical thinking, or Gen AI for growth and the future of work, then let me know by tagging me or sending me a DM, and I'll definitely respond either way. So please do that. It helps me know that there are actually people listening and I'm not just shouting into the void. Now let's get going. You mentioned investments and so on. Obviously that's what we're going to be talking about anyway, but what's the, if you want, the entrepreneurial appetite in the region from entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs, but also from the funders side? And the reason why I'm asking you this is because you started there 14 years ago, you said, with the...
Yeah, so MEVP started about 14 years ago. I've been in this sector since 2005, 2006, roughly, so a bit longer than that. The appetite is huge. If you're talking about venture capital, $3 billion going into this sector on the regional level is nothing. It's a tiny, tiny number.
It is, especially when you compare it to the 40 billion that Saudi Arabia wants to invest, like in AI, yes, which is not huge in AI alone. So
no, 3 billion a year. Just compare it to the size of the, economy. I think the Arab world, we must be at $2 trillion. I mean, if you combine all countries on a PPP basis, but so no matter how you look at it, you take that same ratio in India is much higher. You take it in Singapore is a much higher ratio. So I don't want to compare it to Silicon Valley. It's not useful. I guess if you compare it to most European countries, you'll see that many European countries are around the same ratio. Some probably are more advanced. I need to do the calculation, but it's a tiny ratio. That's just tech VC. Now there's way other routes of fundings for entrepreneurs. Not every entrepreneur also wants to build a large tech company. Some entrepreneurs want to, open, just want to be independent. They want to open their own business, whatever that business may be, whether it's a bakery or a restaurant or a shop or a retail or a vet clinic or a dog training program, or I'm just inventing stuff now. Those are real cases. So entrepreneurship is not just about building mega tech companies and, listing them on NASDAQ and selling them at billions of dollars. It's about a way of life. It's about economic freedom, financial freedom, but it's not, and it's not for everyone neither. It's not everyone wants to be an entrepreneur, go through this stressful journey. Some people are not wired for it. Some people prefer other things. The idea is that you have these economies that are growing, that are filled with opportunities. You have talent that is now more and more geared towards building those opportunities, and you have a regional, mega regional opportunity. As I said, 400 million people, at least in the Arab world, that's very sizable. As a start, most of them are young, which means this population will keep increasing, more active, more participant in its economy. So I've kind of been always optimistic, but this time I'm even more excited about the future. I'm really excited about what's coming next to this part of the world. And that's what I guess I was telling you many years ago. I was inviting you to feel the buzz here. One can feel the energy.
I visited and I did.
And it's actually very welcoming. It's very easy to talk to anyone. Even it's very easy to talk to government officials and to be heard, to be welcomed. I guess this is the nice part of the Arab culture, is this idea that guests should be heard and received. You don't have that in other cultures where things are probably way more transactional or siloed or different, if I may say. I don't want to judge other cultures, but I'm just saying that there is this nice combination of opportunity, energy, and hospitality that makes it very exciting. Now, it's not everyone's cup of tea. I'm sure a lot of people will not find their place here. But I guess if you're willing to put in the hours and put in the effort, it's definitely worth trying and definitely a risk worth pursuing.
Yeah, one thing I learned actually by talking to different people, one, yes, I felt the buzz and the energy when I visited for the first time, like a year and a half ago or something like that. It's that if you want to, as you said, if you put in the hours and so on, you need to be there to make things happen there. You
It's like
can't just,
anything in life.
yeah, absolutely. But what I mean is be there physically. Whereas it's not gonna be
as opposed to what?
Well, as opposed to being in and out online.
Well, I guess it depends where are you from your company. So there's a lot of companies who are very well established that come here to raise funds. And I guess their markets and their businesses, say in the US or Europe, and they love coming here to raise funds, and they present investment opportunities in Europe.
Or like Sam Altman, who just visited.
Sam, yeah, he was here actually. We went and saw his, were invited to his roundtable talk, and the Ministry of AI has pledged a regulatory sandbox and a regulatory regime for AI applications where those AI applications can come and develop, test, build within a legal framework, because that's, AI applications can go very far. So that's one example of, but again, if you are in OpenAI or a Microsoft, you're not going to come and move in the UAE because you're going to have a business. We're talking, I guess we're talking about entrepreneurs, right?
Yeah,
about entrepreneurs at the beginning of their journey. And a lot of people moved here, especially in the Web 3.0, NFT, crypto. They moved here because the regulatory regime was good, because they were able to run their business effectively. We've also, by the way, invested in a lot of companies that became global, especially software and fintech companies became massive globally. They started here. So if you're in the ecosystem to build a business, so what is it? It's recruit talent, build the product, test it, raise funds, deploy it in a market here, or I guess you have to be here. There's an expectation of some entrepreneurs that let's talk about venture capital, for instance. We see about 1,000 company every year. We invest between 5 to 7. What happens to the 995? A lot of things happen to that 995 that we don't invest in. A few are very successful. A lot are basically not going to see the light, not very serious, not dedicated, not great ideas, no traction. But a few will be successful. However, in the 5 to 7 that we end up investing in, we take about 6 months before we get comfortable into placing $5 million, $10 million, whatever the number is, into a company. So, and why do we take 6 months or 4 months? Or because we need to study the opportunity. We're not like a bank loan where you can, put your salary certificate and passports and you have a loan approved on the fly.
Obviously.
Yeah. So how do you get to know a team?
Yeah, it's a relationship business.
It is 100%. 100% is a relationship business. Think of it as your, doctor, GP. I mean, most people want a GP that a doctor that stays with them for years and they can feel safe sharing and discussing. It's a relationship. It's one of those jobs that are built on a relationship. And why relationship is important? Because it's a two-way communication. So you're going to tell me about your business and your idea and what you're doing. And what I'm going to tell you, I'm going to tell you about my experience dealing with similar businesses such as yours, correct? And I would suspect that a lot of entrepreneurs would find that valuable, insightful. Maybe that will save them some drama down the line or some tears or some money because, guess what? Chances are I've done scaled, sold businesses that are either similar to yours or has certain knowledge that you can find useful. So how are you going to capture this if there's no relationship and some depth in the conversation?
So you guys get involved pretty
yeah
yeah
exactly. But of course, if you're a Microsoft and you're coming here we're not talking about that.
No, we're not. Obviously it's different.
Or an OpenAI or
yeah, I mean, on the doctor front, just to highlight this, I don't know if we will still need. I mean, you could have your GP with you all day long, right? With ChatGPT and stuff. Let's see how this is gonna unfold.
I'm excited to see how AI works, but there is a whole idea that because we are middlemen between, we have investors as well and entrepreneurs, and you have models where you have crowd investing platforms, crowdfunding platforms, tokenizations. There's a whole bunch of alternative investment options that do not require you. There's a whole idea of AI-powered VC, which I believe in. I believe in through fintechs with time, you're going to be able to get a certain amount of funding based on a certain amount of input that you put. That is going to become more smart, that I believe in. Our job will be disrupted heavily. However, if you're looking as a venture capitalist just to take funds and to build your business, then yes, this can be really automated. You can skip the whole process, publish your idea somewhere, and people would fund you. But if you're looking to work with me particularly because you like my experience, or with her, or want to work with Maria because Maria has done so many gaming applications and you've seen it all, and you appreciate her as being part of your team and not just an investor, then people will have to come to you and convince you to be on their team. So it's not about the money. It's not, no. And it's never been about the money, right? So yes, on the money side, I guess it's similar to doctors. If you're looking about the benefits of aspirin, that's easy. But if, God forbid, you have a very difficult cancer and you need somebody to kind of take you through that process, you probably need to talk to somebody, right? Most people would. Venture capital is the same. It's never been about, give me $1 million, I have 10% of my company, see you at exit. No, it defeats the purpose of having interesting people that are part of your team. You start thinking about investors as an extension to your team. Humans are, I've always believed this personally. I always believe that you are who you surround yourself with, right? You surround yourself with ambitious people. All of a sudden, we talk about this contagious effect early on of entrepreneurship. You become ambitious. You surround yourself with lazy people who, then it will that will affect you. So I believe in and it's very true in business. Whatever there's no small business. Anything can be sophisticated, big. It's not or it would require brain power. There are no small businesses. People have, built empires out of cakes and built empires out of podcasts and out of, things that at the beginning started as small, but they only were able to do it because I think we're surrounded by the right people. Because the right people get you the right advice, right talent, right capital. I'm not sure we're ready for any AI stuff on that front anytime soon. It's probably gonna, a lot of it will be automated, but that would be very sad if people would never need people, right?
No,
To
for
do
sure.
anything. We're a very
Sure.
sad world.
You don't want to be an AI. Well, you might become an AI. I mean, just your brain in it. So, yeah.
An AI running on the cloud forever.
Yeah. And there's this misconception, or even aspiring entrepreneurs, there's a misconception that you always need to raise capital to get started. And that's not always the case. You don't always need. It's not like a rule. I want to start something, meaning I have to raise money. And if I can't raise money, I can't start anything.
Yeah, of
Because
course. No,
then
absolutely.
the question is like, what you're gonna do with the money? I don't know, right? So how are you? Because you said you look at 1,000 pitches a year.
1,000, yeah. As a company, we're about 1,000 a year.
Let's
But
do that.
we're
What
a
do you
team
look
of
at?
25 people. I mean, we know what we look for. We have our own processes. It's
Are you still into traditional pitch decks? Because there's lots of conversation on this, like pitch decks.
I met a lot of entrepreneurs who kind of struggle with building decks or spend too much time on it. At the end of the day, what is a deck? It's just a piece of paper to describe your business, right? And it's just something you send in an email and hopefully have a conversation around.
Do you look at alternatives to decks? I mean, a video or conversation. Do you prefer warm intros? How do you do it?
Conversations, warm intros. Of course, warm intros are the best, but what are warm intros? Let's define them. Do you mean that I have a great tennis buddy of mine who knows somebody and that's great to start a conversation, but that's a conversation.
Because lots of startups get ghosted. I'm not talking about you in general. I mean,
because they have to understand something is most of the time, and I speak to entrepreneurs all the time, most of the time people go to VC, especially first time entrepreneurs who've never done this before. They go to a VC like they go to a bank and they apply for a loan. When you apply for a loan in the bank, it's a yes, no, immediate, right? When we're not applying for a loan in a VC. Again, the VC is about...
it's a partner.
It's a partner. You are recruiting that partner. You have to think about it. Think about it as flip the thinking a bit. Like instead of thinking about it, hey, I want to apply to a VC and maybe I'll get a reply in a meeting and I'll have a meeting with somebody and maybe they'll give me $1 million to start my business. Think about it differently. Think about it as I want to recruit this VC into my business. The same way I would want to recruit the best the best bakery chef in town to join my new bakery concept. You understand the nuance?
I know, absolutely. And there's one thing where
then
I'm
your
sure you
mindset
just
is
get
different.
emails.
Then you start looking for the right VC based on their experience, based on the people who work there. Your research becomes better. Then when you identify these 4 or 5 that you absolutely want to talk to, and you're in the same town, and you go to the same conferences, or you start creating, or you reach out to entrepreneurs in their portfolio, build a relationship that they can introduce you, and then it's a whole different mindset.
Yeah, no, I am highlighting this because even though it might sound like common sense, sometimes when you're too deep into what you're doing, you tend to forget that you need some kind of personalization rather than saying like no one's replying to me and so on. And also, why do you need money? Do you need money in the first place? So
if it's never ever gonna happen, if you're relying on an email you sent and a beautiful PowerPoint you sent, never. It's never.
Yeah.
That's not the business. Okay, the
and
business
it's the same everywhere. Just
no, not a bank loan. No. You go to a bank. You download the app. You have, you upload 4 or 5, that's what the beauty of fintechs, and you got an auto loan approved. Now you don't even have to go to a bank. You can go to a lot of startups that give you auto loan. In that process, yes, you're buying a commodity, which is money.
Yeah.
We're not providing money only.
No,
You're not buying money from us.
No, for sure.
Acquiring money from us. You have to think about venture capitalists as your partners for the next 10 years. Once you understand that mindset and you are in the recruitment mode of venture capitalists, then the conversation becomes interesting. Then they would want to be part of your story.
Yeah, and then they will have to look for you.
How do we look for entrepreneurs? Great question. We hear about them from others. We hear about them from portfolio companies. They used to work. So let me give you a stat. In all the companies we invested in, we counted that the other day, there was more than 70,000 people that worked in those companies across the board.
Okay.
From delivery drivers to AI experts, right? There's a lot of people to meet.
Oh, yeah.
You cannot meet them all. But, some of them will leave their jobs and go do something else. And they'll say, hey, by the way, I'm starting this. I remember we spoke about that X years ago. What do you think? That's also how we find people, right? We find them in conferences and competitions. We find them online. We hear about them. So yeah, it's a two-way relationship. It's relationship financing, not application financing.
No, for sure. And what I was highlighting earlier, just to say it's kind of the same everywhere. It means it's the same process kind of in like the world. It's like it's not an application to a bank loan, basically. What you're saying, it's this whole relationship business, and then you get entrepreneurs frustrated. That's why. Yeah, but you're looking for something
Bank
else.
loan, you'll have an instant reply. Venture capital, I tell you, 99.99% of the time, you will not have an instant reply saying, where is your... Although it happened. Let me tell you a story happened.
Yes, please. Story.
One of my dear friends who is an entrepreneur that actually sold this company, I thought he's like very different. It was on vacation, and I got back from vacation. We're catching up. And he told me, I got $1 million on my account. I didn't know where it was coming from. And I was like, wow, okay. Somebody sent you $1 million. What is that? Is that like some payment you would do to your old business being sold? He's like, no. My first investor in my old business sent me $1 million. And I didn't pay attention because I was on vacation, and I came back and I was like, wait, where is this million coming from? Then he called him and he told him, like, why did you do this? Like, look, man, I enjoyed working with you. We've been incredibly successful. This $1 million is for your next business. And he told him, I don't have a next business. I'm not in it. He's like, then if you don't want it next year, send it back. And that person ended up building a next business that was way bigger than the first business. Like a $1 billion company.
Nice.
So yeah, it happens. I've seen it actually a couple of times. Yeah.
These are nice stories, actually. The thing is with you, you're always out there. I mean, I met you once, right, in Lebanon. You were going to this kind of small event. Actually, it was not even an event. You were just checking on, I don't even know if they were startups or just aspiring entrepreneurs, and you were just going there, mingling and so on. It's like you're seen, you're accessible. Not everyone's like that. So what do you enjoy the most in what you do?
Well, thank you for calling me accessible. I never thought that.
Well, it took me 5 times to get you on this podcast, but I mean, okay.
Because of the travel schedule. No, you're raising a very good point, actually. Never really... I guess it's... So what I enjoy meeting people. I enjoy their stories, their personal stories. If I can be part of their adventures, I've done this so many times, investing in entrepreneurs, they become... many of them become really family. Some, no, we're just good friends, but And some, turn out to be absolute horror stories, because we have to talk about that as well. No, this is a people's business. If you're gonna cut yourself away from people, then might as well do something else. Yeah, I think that's key, and I wish I had more time in my day to do more on that, because 8 hours, 9 hours a day, they go by very quickly.
Okay. Well, at least I know you'll think about this after, I guess. So, but yeah, just to say, it took a few messages, WhatsApp messages, emails, or like I'm in Dubai or whatever to get you on this podcast. So, yeah.
And I'm
Glad
very
we're
happy to
doing
be
that.
here. Thank
Oh,
you for
awesome.
insisting.
Yeah, I learned that one. Keep insisting. So yeah, never too
Yeah, of
late.
course. I mean, like, again, it's in a sense, you recruited me to your podcast, and
yeah, and I had to pitch to you and everything just so people know it's not that easy to do a podcast or to get people you want on the podcast. So yeah, the funny thing, just for the listeners, is you made me also get a series of questions, which I never do actually. So yeah, I'm not really following the script, if that's okay. I have another question. I mean, I know you look up.
sorry, Maria, think about your questions as your pitch deck. It's never been about the questions you send to a podcast listener. They're just a framework. It made you think of how this will go through, and that's what a deck is supposed to do. A deck is supposed to make you think about certain questions, and no one is holding you liable to your pitch deck and telling you 10 years later, you wrote on your pitch deck 10 years ago that you're going to be $1 billion company. How come you're a $500 million company? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's not works this way. It just puts some framework. It puts some thinking, some questions. It kind of made us get a glimpse of your mind, I guess. And
yeah,
they're just business cards.
No, I agree. I tend to have I know which direction I want to take, but it doesn't mean I follow it, because it really depends on you and what you're going to say. So, that's what I enjoy.
About the person you're inviting. Also, they need to know how does Maria think, and what is her interest? What is she interested? What's she like? Is she nice? Is she cruel? Is she, what feeling will I get talking to her? It's all of that is very important.
Yeah. No, I agree. I might actually start sending a few just directions actually of what I usually say. That's what we're going to chat about, but then it really depends on what happens while we're chatting.
The pitch deck. So, this is exactly the pitch deck.
So my other thing, I'm taking notes as you're talking. You can see my pen also. With what happened in the world back in 2020, I would say, especially during COVID, with skyrocketing valuations, and money was being given to startups right, left, and centers. What's your take on that?
That's typical of cycles. The best time to create wealth has been between 2010 and 2020. In anything, it was, if you're starting from nothing, these 10 years were detrimental in building mega wealth. Give you an example, home loans, cheapest interest rates on earth. You could have bought, and cheapest down payment and lowest down payment, right? You can buy a portfolio of millions of dollars of real estate asset, put very little equity, 5%, 10% over so many years, fix your debt at 1% interest rate, and basically retire 20 years from now. That's the easiest. We'll never see this era again. I mean, never.
Wow, that's a big statement. Okay. Reframe it.
Anytime soon. Yeah, we had an era where those who actually saw it, understood it, made generational wealth, and they've kind of retired. Think of even anything like from real estate to financing of companies, because a lot of VCs took a lot of money on the basis of, because how does money work? Money at that level, there was a lot of it, no interest rate, so people wanted to place that money into businesses. into investments, into real estate, gold, oil, silver, Bitcoin, just name it. Like, you had all these different routing of all this money into all these asset classes. And those who, understood how it works made a lot of money by doing basically nothing. Very little effort. Because now you go and buy the same apartment or the same portfolio of real estate assets, you're going to pay 30%, 35% down payment. You're going to have a 5%, 6%, interest rate. So instead of, you're going to end up paying it 2 times its value, 3 times its value over the next 20 years. So it's not interesting anymore. So the similar cycle happened with startups. However, a lot of people got excited about the digital opportunity, started seeing, more and more exits, more and more mega valuations. And then the party stopped. The party stopped the minute the Fed started raising interest rates. Stock market collapsed or decreased, which meant that valuations went down, which meant that everything you've invested in the past, you have to market to current valuations. If public comparables are down, then private comparables follow public comparables. And you're basically at the downturn. You're actually revaluing your portfolio downwards. Many people invested at high valuations just to flush the money out. But that means that now today they're underwater. A lot of the investments, especially those who have interest rates or hurdle rates or etc., when it starts compounding, you're basically. So what's going on is a mega correction of kind of a very predictable behavior of cycles.
Yeah,
now we're starting a new cycle of high interest rates, which means that the allocation of money is going to change. Going to go into different verticals. The tech story globally, or tech-enabled story globally, is only centered on AI, but there's also a bubble in AI because it's the same thing going. Not every AI company or AI story was worth funding was going to be wildly successful. We're going to see a lot of bloodbath. So we're back to basics. And I've seen this cycle a few times before. It's not the first time I see this cycle. So we're back to, basics, back to profitable businesses, strong unit economics, strong teams, lean cost structures, back to actually, business building the way it was before this kind of last year of that COVID, around that COVID mania. Actually, the writing was on the wall years before that. Just COVID accelerated it because during COVID, there's been incredible amount of printing of money that has happened. A lot of people were homes. A lot of people were using fintechs and started to, adopt that. It became very obvious that certain services, tech-enabled services, are very important. Telehealth, as an example, but also everything related to the on-demand economy, because that's what was important, to have a good infrastructure there. Fintechs were becoming extremely valuable because that's. But then we're back into a new cycle now. And
did you guys manage this risk internally so you don't fall in the trap of what was happening, plus the whole AI bubble? That was going to be my next question.
In a portfolio construction, a fund invests in about 10 to 15 companies, so your downside is somehow protected, because unless they all go bankrupt, you somehow should be able to do some returns to your investors by being diversified. So that's key. And this is our job. That's that allocation, diversification is part of our jobs, not just our job. So funds in a certain way are diversified. The problem with funds, especially here in the MENA region, and also venture capital in general, not just MENA, that it takes a lot of time to exit. Take 10 years, 15 years. large windows, which means that the investors that are with you should have that horizon. They should be patient. So typically pension funds, sovereign wealth funds, very large family offices, corporates, corporations, those who have large horizon can afford to wait that long.
Cool. I have a few questions that I want to ask you. For new funds that want to, because you're saying there's more room for everybody, new funds that want to get started in the region, what should they look at or look for?
You mean new VCs?
Yeah.
I mean, there's been a lot of new VCs in the past 5 years. It's not like there's a lot now. I think somebody counted them. They're probably close to 100 now across the region, if not more, between early stage, seed, pre-seed, A, B. So I don't think we need more new VCs. I think there's enough now to see how will this play out. I guess statistically speaking, some of them will disappear in a few years or end up doing something else. So that's business as usual. I think they're very important to have this diversity of VCs for entrepreneurs so that entrepreneurs can go and hunt and recruit and compare and get a feeling for this one or that one. And, that's important for them. I think the only problem is probably the competition between VC could somehow raise valuations and made return a bit lower in the future. So the investors of those VCs will probably suffer a lower outcome because of the competition. But it's an ecosystem at the end. I think, like everything in life, it will correct itself and it will stabilize around the actual needs. When we started, there was no 100 VCs. We were the only ones. But today, I'm actually happy to see there's 100 or plus. It's a great achievement.
And more angel investors, I guess.
And way more angel, yeah, of course. Way more.
What's your view or your take on accelerators and incubators?
I think they're very useful. They're incredibly useful. Some of them are very good, have great programs. I think many first-time founders would enjoy being part of them. Not sure about, serial entrepreneurs, but I think they're incredibly useful specifically for first-time founders.
Is it something important for you to invest in founders who have been through an accelerator?
I've done this. We actually owned an accelerator at some point. And we know that business, and venture building acceleration is a business that we know very well. We invested in it. I see tremendous value in those businesses, of course.
Cool, because there are more also in the region, so I'm asking you as well. Even in Italy, I mean, if you take even venture builders and studios now is like the thing since COVID. Before, it was almost non-existent. So it's good because it does lots of education on the market as well.
And investment and
what frustrates you?
What frustrates me?
Yeah.
In what sense?
Work-wise, like, is there an investment you kind of missed, you kind of wished in hindsight you would have done or you shouldn't have done?
I cannot look back and say I wish I've done this and that. I'll be depressed.
Well, you learned something.
Well, I mean, yeah, but if you want to look back and say, oh, I wish I did this or this, I said that, or this person was like that, it's just, it's a useless exercise. Like even everything.
Yeah, never regret. Yeah, but anything frustrating?
Expected to go that far. So for me, it's been a blessing. I didn't expect to. I guess it's like everything in life. Your horizon keeps opening while you walk. All you have to do is just keep walking. That's life. That's a journey. I'm very excited about where things are going. Not just our industry. I mean, the whole region, the whole world, where we are, how things are moving. I'm very hopeful that it feels like we're entering a new era. It feels like COVID, in a way, the COVID era in a way was the end of a cycle, and then we're starting fresh over a new cycle. Well, not that fresh, but starting over a new cycle. I think that what frustrates me most are that this whole new world that we aspire to be in is not there yet. That there's a lot of suffering and wars in our part of the world that are unjustified, and only one can hope that they will be part of this new era, part in a way where that all this suffering will not be wasted if we end up going in a better era. Because I think one can only have a sense of history when you're here, a history in the making, history in, as if it was displayed in front of you, and you're watching, but you're also part of it. It's an incredible feeling to have. And that's the feeling that I think I personally have when I'm here. And I'm very grateful for the journey and the impact that this journey has had on so many people, so many lives. I only hope that it will really open up a new era for a lot of people. That's an era of prosperity. That's an era of grounding. And that's my only hope.
It kind of feels good to end it here, but I have one more question. A piece of advice that maybe you were given or that you want to share, or just a piece of advice from you?
I guess I go back to this idea that you are the average of the 5 or 6 people that surround you. It's your job to recruit those people in your life, your job to bring them in, and it's your job to get them out. You can get them out nicely. You don't have to, break friendships or create enemies, but you are the average of the 5 or 6 or whatever people that are surrounding you. And they don't have to be your best friends or best buddy or somebody you grew up with or your girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever. There is, I guess it's true in business, it's true in life. And I find it to be an incredible good advice that I personally been given. And I think it's good to apply it. At least that's one advice. You asked me for one.
For one. For one, how can people find you? Can they find you? Or I'm just lucky to manage to have gotten you on
No,
this
of course they can find me. Sending... So I'm on LinkedIn, and I get a lot of questions, and I try to answer them as much as I can. Sometimes a lot of it is not very relevant, so I simply ignore it because I receive a lot of stuff and can't spend my time responding. But if you're interested in what we do, and you're here and you're part of our ecosystem, it's very easy to find people, especially in Dubai. People are very accessible, and eventually it will happen if you insist.
Cool. No, thank you so much for this, Walid.
Thank you, Maria.
Thank you so much for listening. See you next time.